So it dawned on me tonight that a lot of people say that you need to know your players in tabletop role-playing games, but they don't actually explain how to do that, how to get to know who's at your table with you. A lot of people play with family members or with friends, but sometimes you're going to be playing with complete strangers. And a few tips and tricks about knowing them could be helpful for your game. So I'm going to be telling you the ways that I use to know my players, what I actually do, the cues I look for in their facial features, and how they behave in order to understand what they enjoy at the table. And you might be wondering, why should I care about this random guy on the internet and what he has to say about human behavior? I've been a teacher for more than a decade, and watching my students and seeing when they're paying attention is a fundamental part of my job. I have to give them information in an understandable manner, and to do that, I have to have their attention. And knowing when their attention is waning and knowing when it is heightened is something that I have picked up through the years of teaching. And being skilled at that is directly transferable to playing at the table, to refereeing, to being a GM. If you know how to get people's attention and you know what excites them, what interests them, then you're going to have a dynamic and enjoyable game for those players, because what they're interested in is what they want to be a part of the game. The things that excite them, the things that make them afraid, the things that make them laugh, all of these things to understand is going to make your game better, because you'll know what levers to pull, you'll know when to ramp up things, when you can cool things down, when you can really give the juicy bits of information. And that's the goal of this video. So obviously, you know when players aren't paying attention. If they pull out their phone, if their eyes glaze over, if they look past you, if they seem to be distracted, right? They're not really there at the table, and you can see that distant look in their eyes. That's when you know whatever you're doing there is not interesting to them. Yeah, there are some extra cases. Maybe they have different stuff going on in their life. Maybe they've had a long day at work, whatever. But if that's consistently happening, you're going to want to take note of that. And you don't have to be rigorous about this. You just need to file away in the back of your mind. This thing that I'm doing is not interesting to these players, right? And it's not even something that that you have to be true all the time, and it's not going to be something that's true for all of the players. But when you see that, that's a signal to you that you need to change what you're doing, because whatever you're doing isn't interesting to the people who are at the table, right? So when you see all of those things, the distant look in the eyes, the pulling out the phones, the looking away, you need to change how it works. And there's a lot of different ways that you can change what you're doing, but that's not what I'm talking about today. Today, we're just cueing in on what people are interested in and how to figure that out. And so we want to look for the things they're not interested in by the way that their body behaves. The second thing that you can look for is the things they're paying attention to, where their eyes go, where their hands go, right? If their eyes are looking at you in the eye, if they're looking you dead on the eye when you talk, and they're just completely viewing you, they're engrossed, they are paying attention. They are wanting to be there, right? You can tell, okay? If their hands are looking through their resources that they're using to play the game with, they're looking at the minis, looking at the dice, that could mean that they're interested in those aspects. It could also mean that they're bored with whatever you're saying. So that one's you're going to have to kind of read into. If they are kind of playing with those toys and they ask them a question, right, and then they don't respond, like they go, what, huh? That means they were checking out, right? And that doesn't mean that they necessarily weren't interested in you. It just meant that they were more interested in what was in front of them. And that's not a bad thing. That's totally fine for them to want to be interested in minis and dice or even be on their phone at times. But you want to... We play tabletop role-playing games because it's fun. That's why we're here at the table. And we want to have the most fun at the table as possible every single time we get together. It is really hard as adults to schedule our time in order to all come together at one moment, especially on a frequent basis, and play a tabletop role-playing game. You don't want that night of playing this game to be full of uninteresting and boring moments. You want it to be exciting. And you're going to know that by the way that the players are behaving. If they're looking at you, if they are moving, their hands are moving for their stuff in order to look up information or to write down things that you're saying, that is an indicator that what you're doing is of interest to them. They are enjoying that experience. Now, you could go ahead and directly ask your players, what do you like? What would you like to see more of? There's lots of different ways to do this, right? Stars and wishes is a common question to ask. You ask what were the highlights of the game, things you really like, those are the stars. What you didn't see but would like to see in the future, those are your wishes, right? So you can go ahead and ask, what are some things you enjoyed about this session? What are some things you'd like in the future? Those are stars and wishes, but I would be cautious at what your players are going to tell you. And this sounds counterintuitive, but it's really not. People don't actually know what they want. They think they know what they want. They're going to tell you something, but that may not be what they actually want, because people don't always have the proper self-awareness to understand the things that they want. For instance, even in like Dungeons and Dragons or many tabletop role-playing games where it's a power fantasy, you don't actually want, as a player, to be all powerful. Because if you were, then everything that you came across, you instantly won. Okay, it's like playing on easy mode. And playing on easy mode is fine, and a lot of people do enjoy that because that means they don't have to think as hard, they don't have to work as hard. But if they were to just instantly win every single time, there's no challenge, and it's boring. So that's a common case where people think they know what they want, but they really don't. So anything they say with stars and wishes, right, just take that with a grain of salt, as you should with any kind of advice or any kind of request. Take it with a grain of salt because, well, we're human and we're all fragile and faulty, and that is life. So we talked about what players do with their bodies, with their eyes, with their hands, is going to tell you whether they're interested in what you're doing or not. And we made a quick concession. Sometimes people are tired, or they've had a long day, or they're worried about something else that is not about your game at all, and those things that you normally would be doing would normally interest them, but for whatever reason that is not the case for that person. And those are outliers. It's not going to be a normal thing. But if you have a recurring thing that you keep doing this and players check out, you see their eyes wander, you see phones come out, you see they're doing something else other than playing the game, that's a strong signal that that person's not interested. And if this is just the way that the game that you want to play, right, whatever you're doing is the kind of game that you want to play, then that means that that player may not be the right fit for that game, and that's okay. Like, not every person likes every single thing. For instance, my wife doesn't like tabletop role-playing games. I've tried to get her interested, she just doesn't care for it. And that's fine. she doesn't have to be interested in tabletop role-playing games. And so if your friends or family aren't interested and they're constantly doing something else, then that's fine. You can just have a conversation with them and say, hey, I've noticed that you keep doing whatever the thing that it is that they're doing that you are seeing as a signal that they're not being attentive. And you could say, hey, if this isn't something you're really interested in doing, don't feel any obligation of coming and joining us. But if you are interested, then I would like to see you not do that thing anymore, because it sends a signal. It tells me that you don't want to be here. And if that's true for everybody else at the table, it just kind of brings the game down, right? It bogs it down. That's not what we want. See, the lucky thing about on our free time is we can choose what we want to do. And why choose to do something that you don't enjoy doing? Like, you shouldn't do that. So if someone's not enjoying your table, definitely ask them, like, why, what's going on, and try to figure that out and work that out and take note of how they respond. So big takeaways, I think it's kind of easy on a big notion to look for two things. Look for their eyes, where their eyes are going, and what their hands are doing. And those two things will tell you whether they're really interested or not. Thank you so much for watching the video and liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this content. If you would like to support the channel, feel free to check out more from Piranha Squirrel Productions in the links below. You can follow the Substack, where you will get a free micro monthly. So every month I put out a supplement for Along the Ley Line, a fantasy tabletop role-playing game with fast combat and elegant mechanics, so that you can continue to play the game and not have a bunch of rolls, a bunch of overhead to keep you from having that fun. So thank you so much, and I hope all your games are full of dread and laughter.